What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Katson's Corner, where I got a haircut, and it is draft season. It has, of course, been draft season the whole season on this show. But for those of you that are new to the show, because it is draft season for you, welcome. I think that this week probably marks the beginning of actual draft season for most Chargers fans after that loss to the Ravens to drop to 4-7. We can stop talking about the playoffs, maybe start talking about what they're going to do in April, how they're going to reshape this team. And so that's what we're going to do today. The Chargers only went to one game last week. It was Northwestern Illinois. They went and visited a guy that we have talked about on the show before. They've gone to Illinois now 3 times. I believe this is also their third Northwestern game, maybe their second Northwestern game. That seems to have just been a consequence of Northwestern playing a whole bunch of Big Ten teams that the Chargers are interested in. But Illinois, you guys know the deal over there, and someone we might talk about as we do our actual exercise for this video, which is a mock draft. We're going to do a 6-round mock draft this week. PFF's mock draft simulator has updated to allow for 6 rounds instead of 5. If you remember a couple weeks ago, we did do a 5-round mock draft. Feel free to go back through the channel and watch that one as well. See how things have updated since then. Before we get into doing all that, make sure you guys do all the YouTube stuff. You guys know the deal with everything. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, do all that stuff. Make sure you're getting all the episodes from everyone. If you want to follow me specifically, especially as we get into draft season, want to follow along with the scouting reports and everything, me and Gavino Borquez over at Chargers Wire just dropped a dual mock draft that we did 6 rounds. I did rounds 1, 3, and 5. Gavino did rounds 2, 4, and 6 over there on Chargers Wire. We'll talk about some of those guys probably as we go through today's exercise as well. But if you want to follow along with all that stuff, you can follow me at Alex Katson the same way you see it on the screen, on Twitter, on X, whatever it's called now. I'll be doing all kinds of draft stuff all season, getting ready to get out on the road here in a couple months, go to the Shrine Bowl, go to the Senior Bowl, go to the Combine, go do all that fun stuff. So super excited to share all that with you guys. Hope you guys follow along. Hope you guys enjoy. We're going to go ahead and get started with a mock draft here. So we've got the PFF simulator up. Chargers are up to pick number 9 with their loss on Sunday, picking just behind the Bucs and the Jets, and just ahead of the Titans, who they lost to in week 2. So that's really fun. We're going to go ahead and enter the draft here and see what the first 8 picks look like. And okay, great. So this is one of the outcomes for the Chargers that I think would be bad. As you can see over here, Buccaneers go Brock Bowers at 7. He's a guy that we took in the first round of our mock draft last time. And then Jerzon Newton, the defensive tackle for Illinois, who I alluded to a little bit just now, goes 8 to the Jets. He is who I had going to the Chargers at 9 in the mock draft that Gavino and I dropped this week. I think that he is a perfect fit for what the Chargers need on the interior as kind of like a well-rounded 3-down defensive tackle. They don't really have a guy like that right now. Sebastian Joseph Day has come on a little bit as the season has gone on as a pass rusher, but they are going to have to make a difficult cap decision with him this offseason. They don't really have anyone that could play all 3 downs outside of him on the interior. I think Newton is more than capable of doing that, more than worth a first round top 10 pick. He is one of my favorite players in the entire draft. Let's look at who we do have on the board here. We've got 2 of the top 3 receivers still left. Malik Neighbors and Roma Dunze are here. Chop Robinson is here. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jared Verse, Nate Wiggins, Dallas Turner, Talisi Fuaga, the right tackle. So a couple different options here. I am going to skip over Neighbors and Odunze. I know that a lot of people probably want a wide receiver, especially if a guy like this gets into the range that the Chargers are picking in. I understand the temptation to pick another wide receiver in the first round, but financially and just like asset allocation wise, I don't think that the Chargers are capable of doing that. I don't think that it's something that they can get away with. I don't think it's something they can do. Keenan Allen looks like he's going to be back next season. He's on pace for like 1,700 yards. And so like they're not going to make him a cap casualty. Mike Williams probably will be a cap casualty. The team really likes Josh Palmer. He's produced when he's been healthy. I think that even if you want to talk about, this current staff are the ones that like Josh Palmer, and the current staff may or may not be here next season based on the way that this season has gone. I understand that, but also like a new staff is going to come in and they're going to look at the way that Palmer has produced when he's been healthy. And I don't think that there's going to be like any temptation to move on from him. And you just took a receiver in the first round last season with Quentin Johnston. Obviously, that hasn't worked out to plan so far, but you drafted him as a developmental guy. He is certainly still developing. I think that that's not in any question. But that gives you three receivers that you already have on the team that you've already committed a lot of resources to. Obviously, Keenan Allen's going to be making $20 million. Johnson was a first round pick. Palmer was a third round pick, but he's probably going to get an extension at some point, probably a pretty modest one. But I would imagine that he probably gets extended, especially if this front office sticks around. I just don't see wide receiver being a viable pick, even if they're picking in the top 10, because you get into the same problem that you had when they drafted Johnston this year, which is that where are those reps going to come from? Are you taking reps away from Johnston? Are you taking reps away from Palmer? Like you have to take reps away from someone in order to give them to this other guy. And if the point of drafting Johnston is that he's a developmental wide receiver, you need to give him reps. And so you can't draft another wide receiver to take reps away from him. So as much as I would like Malik Neighbors or Romo Dunze to be in Chargers powder blue next season, I don't think that it's super realistic. I'm going to skip over it for my exercise. I totally get the temptation. I know people are going to be mad at me about that one, but I just personally don't think that it's super realistic. I do think that this is a little bit high for the edge rushers and the corners, but there's really not anything better on the board here. We're not going to do trades in this one. It just gets too complicated, takes too long. I think I am going to go with Chop Robinson here, the edge rusher. Obviously, a lot invested in the edge as well, with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. Tuli was a second round pick last year. I get that, but edge is a much more rotational position. And one of Bosa or Mack, probably Bosa at this point, with the way that Mack has played this season, is going to be off the team next year as they navigate the cap situation. So you have a starting duo of Mack and Tui Pelotu, and then you add a third guy in there. You're going to need an edge 3, which Tui Pelotu is this season, but he's going to move up to edge 2 next year. You need an edge 3 to kind of come in and be able to rotate in with those guys. There's a lot more rotation that happens on the defensive line than in the wide receiver room. And so the investment, I'm not as concerned with there. That's kind of my reasoning there. Obviously, we've gone through on this show how many times the Chargers have been to Penn State games. I think they're up to 6 now this season that they've been to. And so obviously someone that they've gotten plenty of eyes on. Robinson is a freak. He's a super great athlete. I think that he is someone that this Charger staff could really develop into like a big time player. Penn State has a lot of those guys that have come into the league in recent years. The Chargers just saw one of them, Odafe Owe, against the Ravens on Sunday. I think that Chop Robinson is going to be the next guy in that line. I'm going to go in that direction with this first round pick. But like I said, I totally get why the temptation is there for something else. Moving to the second round here, looking at these last couple picks, Kalen King goes at 33. I think that's about the range that I'm comfortable with him right now. We've talked about him a ton on this show. Shooter Sanders at 35. I think he ends up going back to school. Kamari Laster's a corner that I think the Chargers could look into as well. Jalen Polk, Michael Penix, Troy Fautanu, 3 of my Washington guys at 37, 38, and 40. I think that that's probably about right for Polk and Fautanu. I think that that's actually pretty high for Michael Penix. Don't let anyone hear me say that, but I do think that that's probably not going to be as high as he goes in the real draft. But let's look at what the Chargers have available to them at pick 41 here. So we've already picked an edge rusher. So Jonah Ellis, Chris Braswell, Landon Jackson, all those guys are going to be out here probably. We've got corner Josh Newton from TCU. He's a guy we've talked about a couple times on the show. Carson Beck is here. Obviously, don't need a quarterback. Quinyon Mitchell is a fun corner. I think we've talked about him maybe once on the show once he got the Senior Bowl invite. He's someone that I really like. I've been meaning to get back to more of his tape. Toledo tape is a little bit harder to find, so it's been taking me a little bit longer than I want to. But he's a guy that I really like off first glance. Kalen Bullock is here. I think that's really high for him, considering that he can't tackle. We've got some offensive linemen. Johnny Wilson is here. Edgerrin Cooper is a nice linebacker. More edge rushers. Jatavion Sanders, the tight end. I know a lot of people are intrigued by him. Unfortunately, his problem is the same problem that every other Chargers tight end on this team has, which is that he can't block. I think I'm going to go with Mitchell here, just because he's been someone that's kind of been top of mind for me recently. Obviously, the Chargers need a corner, with the way that that room is shaking out. Michael Davis is going to be a free agent. Asante Samuel is going to be entering the last year of his rookie contract. Don't really have any like defined options behind them right now. Davis also just got benched. Judd Taylor just got benched. There's a lot of fluctuation. There's a lot of movement that's going to be happening in that secondary room this offseason. Corner is going to be at the top of that list. I think that Mitchell is a more scheme diverse player than Newton is. And so that's why I'm kind of leaning him over Josh Newton here. But that's something that we'll get into a little bit more once we have a better idea of what the staff is going to be next season. But for now, we're going to go with Mitchell. He's a really nice corner, super productive guy around the ball. I think that he's going to have a really big Senior Bowl week and really open some eyes to him as a guy coming out of the MAC here. Go ahead and do that. Josh Newton goes the very next pick to the Titans. Let's look at what else is going on here. Riley Leonard, Quinn Ewers in the third round here. Blake Corum, Troy Franklin, Luke Lachey is gone. All right. Let's look at what we've got. Got a couple defensive tackles, Mekhi Wingo, Tavondre Sweat, Rod Moore, who had the game-winning interception for Michigan in the game on Sunday. Go Blue, baby. Hail to the victors. We've got Kingsley Suamataia. He's a right tackle for BYU. I think that he probably goes back to school. Jeremiah Trotter is here. Peyton Wilson is here. Billy Bowman is a safety we talked about. Kalen Carson is actually who Gavino gave the Chargers in the second round of our mock draft that came out today. Let's see. What did I do in the third round for the Chargers? I gave them Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon. Let's see where he went. He went at 59 to the Lions. That's unfortunate. I think that the name at the top of the board here is the most obvious one for the Chargers, and that is Florida State running back Trey Benson. If you have not seen Benson play, he has been phenomenal for the Seminoles this season. Had a big touchdown run in their game against Florida on Saturday. He's been phenomenal this season. Definitely in that running back one conversation. I think that running back one is going to be a early third rounder, if not a late second rounder. Not really a ton of guys that you're talking about like up in like the high mid second, like a Kenneth Walker or Brees Hall in the last couple of years. I think it's going to be more pushed towards this area of the draft. And I think you're going to see a ton of running backs go in the third and fourth round. And so this cluster is about where I'm comfortable taking a running back. Obviously, you see here that PFF thinks that the Chargers' biggest need on the entire team is running back. I get where they're coming from with that. Obviously, Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly, both free agents after the season. Austin Eckler has not been very good since coming back from his ankle sprain. I think that they're probably going to let him walk. Josh Kelly, I think that I'm a little bit more ambivalent on. Haven't really gotten a good read on whether or not he's going to come back next season. But Benson is a guy who can step in and be the 1A in a committee immediately. Runs with a lot of power, has a lot of burst through the hole, kind of just like a really good player all around. Someone who I think is going to make an NFL team a lot better. And I think getting him in the third round here is about right, but is also a very, very good value, especially for a Chargers team that needs answers at running back. So we're going to go ahead and go with that. Right. Michael Pratt goes at 78. That's fun. Looking at the fourth round here, Zach Frazier goes at the top of the four. Cedric Van Pran goes at 106. So we're kind of out of center options, which sucks. Bucky Irving goes. He's a guy that we talked about in our last mock draft. Audric Estime, Travion Henderson. So you see a lot of running backs starting to go here. Donovan Edwards goes up here at 95. And then not as many as I thought there would be, but still a pretty decent chunk. Those are kind of the names to be familiar with. All right, so we've taken a running back, we've taken an edge rusher, we've taken a corner. We've got Torrey Horton, the wide receiver here available. Gavino gave us Jacob Cowing in the fourth round here, who's another receiver from Arizona. We've talked about him on the show before. Danny Stutzman is a nice linebacker who I like a decent bit. Michael Hall is a nice defensive tackle. Will Shipley's another good running back to keep an eye on. Jermaine Burton, a wide receiver that's been productive for Alabama this season. AJ Barner is kind of Michigan's tight end 2. I think that having him up here is maybe a little bit high for me. Jalen McMillan, there's some rumors that he might come back to school for Washington this year because he's been injured this season. Braylon Allen is here. Drake Nugent, the center from Michigan. I think that we are going to do that. Obviously, receiver is a need for the team. I do want to address that at some point. But center is something that we've talked about on this show before. We've placed a lot of emphasis on it. It's something that we placed an emphasis on in the mock draft that came out this morning as well. Obviously, I talked about Powers Johnson in the third. It really, really sucks that Zach Frazier and Cedric Van Pran go like only like a handful of picks before us here, because I think that those two guys, along with Powers Johnson, are pretty like clear cut above. Um, but I also think that Nugent is kind of like in a tier by himself, where once you get past Nugent, there's not really any other centers that I like. We can kind of filter here by center to see who else is available. Well, not really. We can filter by interior offensive lineman, but as you see, here's Nugent at center, and then guard, 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 and then the next center is not until 214, which is like the lowest rated offensive lineman they have left on the board. So I think if you don't go Nugent here, you're talking about missing out on a center, which then you're either talking about you're confident in Corey Linsley coming back from this heart issue that the Chargers have made it sound like he's retiring because of. You think that Will Clapp can be the answer for a year. You're signing a free agent with the $0.05 that you have in cap space going into free agency, or you are just doing nothing about it. You're just like, I don't know, maybe you're sliding Zion Johnson over to center, which is an idea that I know has been floated by a lot of people. I don't like that idea. Steven doesn't like that idea. We've both been pretty vocal about why we don't like that idea. It's just about consistency for Zion, keeping him at the same position, letting him grow into the position he's already in. Don't move him around too much. It's going to scramble his development up too much. I'm not really a fan of that, but I guess it's something that they could do if they don't like any of the centers. They could draft a guard and then move someone to center. But I'm going to go with Nugent here over a wide receiver. There's going to be more wide receivers available. We'll see as the board kind of shakes out here going in the 5th round. Nugent has been solid at center. He hasn't been as good as Olu Oluwatimi was. Obviously, he won the Rivington Trophy for Michigan last year before ending up as a 5th round pick for the Seahawks. He's been pretty decent over in Seattle this season. Nugent is a transfer from, I believe, Stanford. He was pretty good at Stanford. He's been pretty decent at Michigan. Michigan's offensive line has been a little bit overrated this season, but they did some nice stuff in the run game against Ohio State on Saturday. I think that Nugent is worthy of a 4th or 5th round pick here, so I'm comfortable with this value. And the Chargers need to address center, and so I'm going to go ahead and go do that. All right. Wait for the simulation here. We're into the 5th round. Dylan Laub goes to the Jets. He's someone that we talked about a couple weeks ago, kind of like that Danny Woodhead archetype player. Obviously, I already took a running back, but just kind of like looking at what happened here. Dallin Holker is a nice tight end for Colorado State, who I like a little bit. Ray Davis goes. He and Braylon Allen here are someone that I think could sneak up a little bit higher than this like compensatory 4th round range. Very high for Shiloh Sanders. I realized a couple days ago that I've been telling everyone in the Guilty as Charged Discord that Shiloh Sanders is out of eligibility after this season. That is not true. He's a 5th-year senior. He can come back next year. He probably will come back next year because he's not very good. Let's look at what's on the board for the Chargers. We've taken a running back. We've taken an edge. We've taken a corner. We've taken a center. There's a tight end here, Theo Johnson, who I like quite a bit. Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver, is here. Mikey Sainer still is here, the slot corner. DeQuarian Clark, Cade Stover. Cade Stover is actually who I gave the Chargers in the mock draft that dropped this morning. I think that is something to keep an eye on. Definitely. We'll look through a couple more of these just to see if there's anything different that I want to do. You know what? Just to mix it up a little bit, because I already gave Stover to the Chargers in the Chargers Wire mock draft that came out this morning, and I want you guys to go read that after we're done here. I'm going to go with Jaheim Bell here, who's a little bit different. He's someone that's been compared to Gerald Everett on a lot of occasions. I think that Bell's a better blocker than Everett. Let's be clear here before we go forward with picking him. I think that Bell is a better blocker than Everett is, but as a receiver, he's been compared to Gerald Everett a ton. Kind of that same sort of like run after catch sort of guy where like once or twice a game, he just has a play where he runs through like 4 or 5 tacklers, and you're like, why doesn't he do this on every play? Where did this come from? Um, he's also someone that's been compared a lot to Chiga Okonkwo, the Titans tight end, as kind of like this move around piece that is like doing a whole bunch of like jackknife stuff, lining up like in line and offline a little bit, and like as an H back and as like an F tight end and doing all this like crazy stuff. I think that Bell is a really versatile player. He's going to be in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. He's going to play a little bit of fullback when he's there, honestly. And so he is someone that I have my eye on. I've had my eye on him for a little while. He's been a draft order favorite for a minute. A little bit undersized for tight end, but I am not super concerned about that, especially down here in the 5th round. I think that he's a reasonable enough blocker to get by, which is better than what the Chargers have now. He is a reasonable enough receiver, someone that I could see taking over for Gerald Everett if either the Chargers are not able to re-sign him or if they sign him to a short-term deal because they don't have any money. But I'm going to go ahead and do that because I already gave him Stover in the wire draft. But Stover is one I like a lot too. I also saw Ben Sonata still on the board. He's someone I like as well. Let's zoom down to the 6th round here. All right. And we are looking at quarterbacks. DJ Uyunglele, KJ Jefferson, who just had a knee injury last week, looked pretty nasty. Ben Sonata is actually still here, so we can talk about him. But we've talked about him on the show before. Brendan Coleman, Mayan Williams, Cole Bishop is still down here, which is a crime. That's silly. Malachi Moore is here. Nia Smith. Darius Robinson is a fun player. Let's see. Jordan Birch, I know someone mentioned to me a day or two ago as someone they liked. Have we still not taken a wide receiver? Is that what we're missing? Let's see. All right. So we have an edge rusher, a corner, running back, center, tight end. Yeah, no wide receiver yet. Okay. Let's filter by wide receiver, see what we got here. Nia Smith, Isaiah Williams, Gadsden, Fleming, Lewis, Cowing. Jacob Cowing is who Gavino. I mentioned Gavino gave the Chargers in the 4th round. A little bit undervalued here on PFF. I think he will end up being closer to that 4th round value rather than being available in the 6th here. Will Shepard is another underrated guy that I like a little bit. I don't know why Bryson Nesbitt is here. He's a tight end. Silas Bolden is down here. A little bit of slim pickings, at wide receiver here. Not anyone that I like a ton, but of this group, I think I do like Cowing and Shepard the most. Again, Cowing is in the mock draft that Gavino and I posted this morning, so I'm going to go with Will Shepard here. Obviously, plays for a Vanderbilt team that is not very good, but he's been Vanderbilt's best player. Vanderbilt has a couple guys that got invited to the Shrine Bowl. One of them is the punter, to be fair, but Shepard has been productive for them this season. He's been a good player overall in his career. I think that he's going to be another one of those guys that kind of opens a lot of eyes once he gets on the All-Star game circuit and gets out to the combine and stuff. In the 6th round, just kind of like throwing darts, just like a depth piece, which I think is more what the Chargers are going to be looking at a wide receiver rather than like taking a guy at like 9th overall. Let's look at the grades here. Chop Robinson, we get an A. Quinyon Mitchell, B+. All right, good start. Trey Benson, we get an A, and then doesn't like our back half of the draft, which is rude of them. But a lot of it is just because like we did some reaches according to PFF Sports. So Drake Nugent gets a D+ for picking 17 picks above value there, as well as PFF doesn't recognize center as a need for the Chargers, which I think is silly. But nothing you can do about that. Tight end, we take the number 170 player on PFF's board at 146, so they don't like that a ton. We get a C for that. And then Will Shepard, 217 on PFF's board. We take him at 187, so D+ for that one. But overall, a B+, which I think is about what we got last time also. PFF, very harsh to me, very rude. PFF and I have a very long history of disagreeing about players. That's not going to change anytime soon. I do like to see Quinyon Mitchell up at 46, but other than that, we're going to continue to disagree about players. That's fine. That's what makes this fun. And so, yeah, I think that this is a pretty good draft for the Chargers. You beef up the defense in rounds 1 and 2, get some like impact players that are going to be, the guys that fix that unit going forward. Obviously, you pair Chop Robinson with Tuli Tuipulotu long term, get a hopefully elite edge rusher tandem transition from Mack and Bosa to Tuipulotu and Robinson. Quinyon Mitchell enters as your CB1 or CB2 and hopefully takes over that CB1 spot. And then everything else is focused on fixing up the offense a little bit. Obviously, a unit that hasn't struggled a ton. I know that people are frustrated with it. It's been a little bit more up and down than we have wanted it to be this season. But at the end of the day, they're still top 10 in EPA per play. They're still like an elite offense by pretty much every metric. I don't think that they need like these big sweeping changes like the defense needs, which is why I went defense rounds 1 and 2. And then in the third round, get a starter at running back. Fourth round, get a starter at center. Fifth round, get a potential starter at tight end. And then sixth round, take a depth wide receiver. Kind of fill out the rooms a little bit there. Benson enters as your RB1A in a committee, probably with Josh Kelly, who comes back on a cheap deal. Nugent probably enters as your backup center behind either Clapp or if Lindsley comes back, which doesn't seem likely. And then eventually you want to see him take over the starting job there. Bell enters as probably your tight end 3. If you bring back Everett, Parham will be back next year as well, and then kind of climbs his ranks from there. And then Shepard enters as your wide receiver 5 behind Allen, Palmer, Johnston, Davis, and kind of like replaces or competes with Jalen Guyton for kind of like that role. And I think that fills out the talent on the offense a little bit better, makes things a little bit more well-rounded for the Chargers there. So that's going to do it for this week, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Went through stuff a little bit quicker than normal this week, trying to stay under that 30-minute mark for you guys, which it looks like we're going to do this week for the first time in months. So hopefully you guys are grateful for that. But yeah, I thought that draft went pretty well. Obviously, if you want to see what Gavino and I did over at Chargers Wire this morning, you can find that article either on the Chargers Wire Twitter account or I posted to my Twitter account as well. Went in a very different direction than this one did. And so I think you'll enjoy kind of getting to weigh those two. Let me know which one you like better, either in the comments of the Twitter post that I made or in the comments of this video or wherever it may be. Let me know what you thought of this mock draft. Let me know what mock drafts you guys have in mind, what players you have in mind. Send me your mock drafts. I'll look at them. I'll review them. I'll say like, hey, nice job. This looks good. I think hopefully you guys understand my reasoning with a lot of these picks. Like I said, I don't think that like the offense is going to need a ton of sweeping changes. The defense is really what needs more help, which is unfortunate because this draft is much better at the offensive positions at the top than it is at defense. And so, of course, it's the year that the Chargers need defensive players. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. And so, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Again, make sure you guys do all the YouTube stuff, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, make sure you're getting the episodes from everyone, including me. I will be back next week to talk more draft stuff. Give me ideas for what we should do next week. Again, maybe we'll talk about conference championship games. Maybe we'll talk through some players that I've been watching that week. Let me know what you guys want to see, because games are pretty much over, scouting visits are pretty much over, and so we'll have less things to talk about. It'll be less structured going forward. We probably won't do another mock draft just because we did one right now. But I know you guys are always down for that sort of stuff. But let me know what you want to see next week. I'll roll through the comments, see what you guys think, and yeah. Hope you guys have a nice rest of your week. Hopefully Chargers football doesn't get you too down as we approach the holiday season. And until then, bolt up, baby. See you.